the education, the PNM.
Women's League, good afternoon. I ain't hear you all, you know. Afternoon. To our Lady Vice Chair, Minister Camille Robinson Regis, to all of the other executive members of the National Women's League, to my various cabinet colleagues who are present, to the members of Parliament, to the senators present, to all of the various mayors, chairmen, aldermen and councillors throughout Trinidad, and also I see our members from Tobago present here this afternoon as well. Good afternoon. I thought Lisa was going to get me in trouble there when she said the man who loves. I thought she was just going to stop at women more than anybody, but that would have been the truth as well. I'm glad she has added national and league after it. Of course, to our matriarch, Madam Jo Newell Williams, who is everywhere, and may we all continue to have her energy. Let's give her a round of applause. This afternoon is a great day, not only for the People's National Movement, but for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. To come here this afternoon and to see a hall that is overflowing with standing room only is indeed a good sign and a signal of the vibrancy of the women in the PNM. Give yourselves a round of applause. I'd like to start off this afternoon's conversation with you by recounting and recalling appropriately the importance of the National Women's League. Because you see, it was decades ago that the founder of our party, Dr. Eric Williams and others who sat to draft the Constitution, saw it fit to immediately at the outset recognize the strength, the power, and the importance of the women in the party, and to formalize that into the National Women's League that is unsurpassed and cannot be matched by any political party in the whole CARICOM region. And that is something to be proud of. From day one, anybody entering the PNM, the first thing you recognize is the power of the women. The first thing you recognize is that we appreciate the women in the party. And not only is it a token conversation, but it is put into practice. Because the PNM has always respected and appointed women to positions of power. And those women very often come from the Women's League. And it's not only at the highest levels. The first President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to be a female, Paula May Weeks, President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, the Leader of the House. You look at the cabinet and see the amount of women in the cabinet. No. Because you see, people could say that is done for perception, but not in the PNM. You need only look at the corporations. And we have female mayors, like our mayor from the new borough of Diego Martin, Madam Mayor Glasgow. You look at Port of Spain, we have a deputy mayor in Port of Spain, Abina Hartley, and a number of young councillors. And it is like that throughout all of the corporations that the PNM is involved in. But then you also look at who the PNM appoints to boards and to important positions in state enterprises. And again, it is replete with women. And that is because we recognize the intelligence, the strength, and the power of the women in society. We have always recognized that, and we will continue to do so. When you look at what is going on in United States politics, as I'm sure many of you are right now, you will see that with the recent movements that have taken place in the Democrats' Party, with the elevation of the Vice President of the United States now to be the nominee for the Democrats in the United States, if you observe carefully, It is the women in the party and it is the women in the United States who are mobilizing the vote. Have you all seen that? They have formed a number of interest groups all over the country. And that is something that the PNM has been doing from the day we were born to now. So my first message to you here today, ladies, is we appreciate you. And we recognize at the outset the importance of each and every one of you. Because you see, every time the Women's League mobilizes in the party, that is when we bring home the general elections. And we know that, and we're calling upon you once again to prepare yourselves for battle that is coming. And I am sure, just looking at the crowd, that is only a small representative of the women in the PNM here this afternoon, that you all are preparing yourselves. But you see, you can't pull the wool over women's eyes, and that is not the PNM way. So the leadership of the PNM has come here this afternoon to talk to you and to let you all know some of the important messages and how we appreciate you, what we intend to do, and why it is we need you once again to mobilize yourselves across the 41 constituencies in every nook and cranny of Trinidad and Tobago to lead from in front. Because you see, any household knows that it always comes down to the responsibility of the woman. Not so? It is always the mothers of the households who carry the biggest load. Not so? And the PNM is no different. Because we know that once we get the women in the PNM to be able to carry that for us and to talk to their children, their grandchildren, their nieces, their nephews, all of the family, all of the neighbors, all of the area captains and everyone, then the PNM will mobilize. But to do so, we need to arm you all. We need to give you the facts to go out there. But first and foremostly, it is important that we convince you that you must pick up this task for the People's National Movement again. So the first question I have for you all this afternoon is, are you all ready once again to return the People's National Movement to power in the upcoming elections? Let us signal that from here this afternoon across Trinidad and Tobago. Are we ready? Are the women in the PNM ready to lead us into battle once again? Because it is always the National Women's League who is first in the front line when they are attacking our political leader, Dr. Rowley. The first in the front line to protect Dr. Rowley, to defend him and to tell the truth is always the National Women's League. And I thank you for that. Thank you, thank you. You do it for all of the other members of cabinet and members of government who deserve that protection as well. And you will be called upon in the upcoming season, I am certain, to do it time and time and time again. Because you see, it is beyond a doubt and it is irrefutable that the National Women's League of the People's National Movement is respected throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and I dare say, feared by our political enemies. You see, when the People's National Movement's National Women's League talks and roars or talks with silence, the whole country listens, and you always see the reaction from the detractors, and they have never been able to respond to the National Women's League, and that is one of the most important tasks that you carry for us in this great party of ours. The role of the mother and women in our society. You are the ones, and I have seen it firsthand. I saw it with my mother, and I saw it with my grandparents, my grandmothers in particular. How, with times of poverty with my grandparents, how it was always the women who sacrificed, the women who saved, the women who went without to send their children to school. That is how my mother managed, out of a family of 7, from a small wooden house in Debe, to be able to go away to study to be a nurse, where she met my father, who had also come from challenging circumstances, but was fortunate to get a government scholarship to study accounting. And when I listened to them and I experienced both of my grandmothers, it was their sacrifice and the belief in bettering their children. And that is what the People's National Movement women have done time and time again. And I salute you. Because each and every mother in this room, each and every grandmother in this room, each and every aunt in this room, you carry that weight. And you are the ones responsible for the young people and the children in society. And what I've come here to tell you this afternoon is this government is going to stand by you. We have put in place the programs and we will continue to maintain it. We are now looking at expanding the programs that I will talk about in a short while. But we recognize the importance and the role of mothers and women in our society. And you have our full support, but more importantly, our gratitude for the task that you continue to do during very difficult times in Trinidad and Tobago. The government hears you. We know how difficult it is. Don't let those naysayers, and I see now our opponents are trying to make it seem as though the world is crumbling around us and as though there's something different that they can do that would be better for Trinidad and Tobago. But I have come here today to remind you that nothing the UNC can do for Trinidad and Tobago will develop it, will take it forward, or will be better for the people. Because you see, when you engage in corruption, if you steal $10 million out of the treasury, that $10 million could have been spent in proper programs and to make sure it affects many, many lives as opposed to a few pockets. So understand that those who engage in corruption, what they are doing is taking the money away from those who are able to make sure it is properly spread all over. Don't let the UNC fool you by throwing a little corn here and there when they really stuff in their pockets and fill in their pockets and looking after themselves, and they don't give a damn about us, about our children, or about our women. And that is a fact. The PNM government recognizes this, and we have put in place a number of programs focused on our women and our children across Trinidad and Tobago. In education, what do you think GATE is about? What do you think the kindergarten level schooling is about? What do you think being able to provide for a young woman? I am proud when I was practicing law and seeing the change in the courts that more and more women began to fill the courts and very soon outnumbered the men. That is PNM policy, making sure that our women are given opportunities. It is the same thing in the medical field, the same thing in engineering. It is the same thing across every single profession in Trinidad and Tobago, making sure that our young women get the opportunities that you, the mothers, push them to and nurture them to be able to get. That is all PNM policy, and we will continue it. It is the same thing in healthcare. This government's term, you've heard Minister Dial Singh focus on the maternal health care. You've heard some of the programs put in place for a woman in the healthcare system. It is important, and let us not forget, we are one of the few countries in the world that can provide a public healthcare system. Are there problems? Are there challenges? Absolutely. That exists everywhere in the world. But we make sure that we provide for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It is not about contracts. It is not about giving a contract to a friend and a financier once the PNM is in office. It is about making sure that the people get the benefits of what the taxpayers have provided. It is the same thing with one of the most recent ministry that was created by Dr. Rowley in this term in 2020, the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. Minister Cummings has taken that ministry and he has turned it around to provide for the young people of Trinidad and Tobago, and that benefits all of us as parents. What you have seen there is a direct PNM policy to look after our young people Do not let them attack those programs. Do not let them water down those programs. It is important. And you are seeing, as parents, the benefits of that program as we look to extend it in other areas. And let me tell you something, Cummings could beg, Minister Cummings could beg for more and more and more. And if you give him a run, he take everything in that ministry and go on, And that's credit to him. I just came from preparing for F1GP tomorrow. And as usual, a number of notes from Minister Cummings to the Cabinet trying to persuade us to extend programs that are going to help those youth in our society who are falling through the cracks. And I want to give the government and Minister Cummings a round of applause for that here today. One of my favorite ministers, my favorite is Minister Robinson Regis. That goes without saying. That goes without saying. When I came into the political arena in the front line in 2014, Minister Robinson Regis, portraying all of the qualities I've just referred to of a strong, powerful, intelligent, maternal woman, took me under her wings. And I declare here today in front of all of you in the Women's League, I am forever grateful to your Lady Vice Chair and my maternal mother in the politics, Madam Camille Robinson Regis. She laughing because she knew the story I wouldn't give today of when I was going and do some chopping. I'll give it. So I'm new to the Senate, sitting down as a temporary opposition senator on one of my outings. And one of my colleagues was attempting to mislead me in the Senate. And he wanted to do a walkout. So he jumped up. I said, come Stuart, let's go. I know reach. I following instructions. So I jump up. All I saw was the katai, and plenty of all you know the katai. You don't pretend you don't know the katai. You all know it? From the Lady Vice Chair. She watched me so. She says, sit your little dong book on the chair. And I knew from that day onwards, I would follow what she told me to do. And that is the love of the People's National Movement. Because I look across the aisle every week and you do not see that type of care, that type of nurturing, and that type of political astuteness over on the other side. That is unique to the People's National Movement. Don't let them fool you. They feel by just having a female leader, that's enough. No. Because you see, each and every woman in this room who's a member of the PNM, each and every one of you are leaders in your own rights. And I say that without fear of contradiction. This is not a party that's fight down women. This is a party that uplifts women, and the women pull the men up after them. And I am proud of all of you for that. Keep it up. I was going to talk about Minister Webster Roy. Quiet, unassuming. Going to bring back Tobago East first, correct? Going to bring back Tobago East. Farley and Duke, we bringing back Tobago East with Minister Webster Roy. Let me tell you all what she has been doing very quietly over the last 9 years. When we came in as an administration in 2015, the UNC on their way out passed a suite of legislation creating children's rights, a children's authority, laws that apply. It is great, but they did absolutely nothing to implement it, not a thing. But they put on the state all of these obligations in law. You know what's the first thing their former AG, who on a number of criminal charges, did? When we came in, he brought constitutional cases against the state for the same law he and his government passed and did nothing to implement. That fell on Minister Webster Roy. And very quietly over the last 9 years, and you all go and check it. I keep telling her, Ayana, talk to the population about it, and she will. She has built out, and it was Dr. Rowley who saw the need for a specific ministry in the office of the Prime Minister for Children and Gender Affairs. Minister Webster Roy has built out all of the infrastructure to look after the children. Give her a round of applause. In difficult times, she now has safe houses for women who are the victims of domestic violence and their children. She now has homes for the children. She has now gone out and pushed that we will have foster homes for those children who unfortunately may not have parents and family members to look after them. And that work has been done by a PNM minister without corruption. Congratulate Minister Webster Roy, one of the strong women of the PNM. I can't forget out my next colleague from Tobago West. So last night, one of the duties I had to perform yesterday as acting Prime Minister was to go to the finals of the Prime Minister's Best Village competition, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I had to leave early to go and speak at another function as the acting Prime Minister. As I sat next to Shamfa, she says, Stewie, this crowd different, you know. I said, I could see that, Sham. She said, there's a real vocal crowd here, you know, Stewie. I could see that, Sham. Shamfa gone up, talking to the crowd. Say, I'm going to be short. The crowd say, yeah. Shamfa say, I want an extra 2 minutes. Well, boy, I didn't know if I had to run up on stage, grab an extractor and run out. But the crowd was gracious. And I want to congratulate our next MP from Tobago West, Minister Cujo Lewis, for all that she has done in our portfolio. As Shamfa was returning to her seat, a young man sitting to my right. Shamfa, I love you. I say, boss, Shamfa married. He say, you stay out of that. I say, Shamfa husband on his own, yes? And these are some of the women in the PNM. We can't forget about education. Dr. Rowley saw it fit to put 2 mothers, 2 educators to lead the Ministry of Education, our deputy political leader, Minister Nian Gatsby Dolly, and your own minister in the Ministry of Education, Lisa Morris Julian. What she didn't tell you when she was speaking about me is she too tries to look after me. A difficult task for any woman, I'll let you know. I want to spend a few minutes talking to you all about a very serious subject this afternoon. I'm not going to spend too long, but it's important because you are the front line of the PNM. I almost get in trouble there, yes? I look down and I see Penny watching me. And Minister Beckles Robinson is in charge of the PSIP. So if I don't hail out Penny and the great work she's doing at Planning and Development, Energy PSIP might disappear. Penny are hailing you, she's saying you ain't getting nothing. And of course, Senator Paula Gopi-Skoon, who has done a fabulous job in the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Give her a round of applause. But I'll tell you something, I am even prouder of Paula for what she has done recently in Maruga. And I want all of you all to give her a round of applause for being the coordinator. Because Maruga, all you have to settle down, But what you all did recently started the vibrations and the momentum towards the election. What you all did in Lengua Indian Walk. And that came under the leadership of your coordinator, Senator Paula Gopi-Skoon. And there are many, many more powerful women. I would use my whole afternoon, which I don't want to do, if I had to go through each and every one of the leaders of the women in the PNM. This afternoon, I want to spend a few minutes with you all, giving you the facts, so you could go out there and deal with the naysayers, and you could go out there and talk to the population as to why they must vote the People's National Movement back into government in the next general election, which is coming. That is energy. I don't think people in Trinidad and Tobago, and understandably so, have a proper understanding and appreciation of energy. Because very often, all we understand is these concepts of oil and gas. But this afternoon is my task to share with you how important it is and to try to arm you with the facts, because they are attacking it day and night, and you have to be the front line to refute what they're saying. Why is energy important? For over 100 years, Trinidad and Tobago has been exploiting oil, pulling it up out of the ground, and selling it commercially. Our economy is based on oil and gas. Our economy, our revenue, the money to build this school hall, the money for the fans, the money for transport, the money for education, the money for drugs in the hospital, the money when you go into the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service with all of those programs, the money for housing, the money for all of the programs that Minister Donna Cox has under her ministry, all of that is paid from the revenue of oil and gas. Even when you see non-oil and gas revenue, Minister Gopi Skuna read your note this afternoon, and I will point out to you all tomorrow how exactly as I've been saying, even under that category, much of it, especially the billions that are earned, are linked to energy. Whether it be the fertilizers, whether it be the chemicals, whether it be some of the products that are made, etc. Even when you look at the export of metals and materials, a whole set of it is related to the energy sector. So it's important for all of us to understand this thing, because the UNC are spending a lot of time trying to change the narrative on the energy sector. But I'm proud, because it's once again under PNM government over the last few years, under the astute leadership of our political leader, Dr. Rowley, giving me the guidance that we have managed to secure once again a future for all of our children in Trinidad and Tobago. One of the false narratives you hear them talking about now is that we put all our eggs in the Venezuelan basket. You all hearing them say that? So everything is, oh, you're counting on Dragon, you're counting on gas from Venezuela. Suppose now it doesn't happen. You all have heard them start to say that? Well, that's because of the success in Venezuela. But I want to assure all of you here this afternoon, it is completely false. And I want to tell Kamala and all of our followers that we in the PNM know the truth and we know the facts. And I'm going to share some of it with you all today. Over the last few days, you would have seen BP sell some assets, sell some gas fields to Perenco. And they want to try and say that is a bad thing for Trinidad and Tobago. It isn't. It is actually a good thing. They came to speak to me months ago, and I told them the government will support it. BP is such a large operator in the world. Their cost is different. What might cost BP $100 to do, Perenco may be able to do for $50. So $50 at Perenco, when they spend that $100, they get in 2 times the work and the effort that BP could do. You all understand that, right? The larger you are is the less efficient you may be in some areas. So stand by, because despite what the naysayers are telling you and those who think they're specialists in the area, Perenco will increase the production from those fields in a way that a BP operator may not be able to. And that is what is going to happen. And that, quite simply, is what that deal is about. So fear not. Don't let them interfere with our psyche. That deal is a good deal. Otherwise, Trinidad and Tobago's government, or PNM government, would not have agreed to it. Yesterday, and it was the lady vice chair who reached out to me yesterday evening. There was a particular commentator who is held out to be some sort of expert in the energy sector, and he wrote an op-ed yesterday. He wrote an article in one of the newspapers talking about how the government is not looking after the people of Trinidad and Tobago. With this same deal, he said we, the government, should take BP's infrastructure. You all know how expensive it is to run a platform offshore. It is literally going to cost hundreds of millions of US dollars. Why would the government go and try to do that with an aged asset? That makes no sense. But this is some of the stupidness, some of the dotishness that people try to tell us in the population. So I want to assure you all that the government, this PNM government, knows what it's doing, and the energy sector is in good hands. And if you all don't believe me, I brought 2 articles for you all here today, because you see, when you hear Rowley and Young talking, sometimes there's one to doubt it. One of the best things that has been done by this government is something called the Loran Manatee Field. 27% is Manatee on Trinidad side, and the other 73% is in Venezuelan's waters called Loran. We went, under Dr. Rowley, In 2019, when the sanctions started coming on Venezuela, he spoke to the Venezuelan government and said, we want to develop Manatee alone. You don't get to do those things when you're developing it, because if you start to take gas from one side, it could affect the next side, because a field knows no boundary. He went to them and said, we need that gas for Trinidad and Tobago in the future. Because of our relationship, they said, come and speak to us. I then pursued it, a number of trips to Venezuela, and we secured the Manatee deal. Shell is doing the Manatee deal. And you continue to have Kevin Ramnarine and others talk about how Manatee may not happen at every step of the way. I want to show you all, so when you go out there, you could tell people it is happening, and it is going to happen, and it is going to benefit our children in 2027. Look at this article. The 13th of August 2024, Shell's Manatee field advances. If you don't want to believe me, just go and see it on the internet. Go and search it. What is happening is Shell has given full speed ahead. Final investment decision. The Manatee field is being pursued. They're building the infrastructure. It is going to happen. And we're looking to bring that gas in 2027. That is PNM government and PNM leadership. You go out there and tell that story. They say nothing is happening. They say until Manatee and until you get the gas from Venezuela, nothing is happening. Yes, we have a decline in production, but that is not our fault. They did nothing between 2010 and 2015. When you negotiate a contract today, I told you all, negotiated that in 2019. We are now in 2024. 5 years later, before Shell takes FID on that field. They did nothing from 2010 to 15. All of the contracts expired. So what do you expect? As we come in, we start to negotiate, and you're pushing hard in different circumstances to get more gas. So production has gone down, but it is going to be on its way back up from 2027. There is another thing that happened recently, and I thought it important to share with the women of the PNM here. BP and Shell are two of the largest oil and gas companies in the world. When you're in the energy sector, it is not about what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago. It's what's happening around the world. We small Trinidad and Tobago competing to get their money that they could invest in Indonesia, they could invest in Dubai, they could invest in Saudi Arabia, they could invest in Egypt, they could invest in Argentina, anywhere in the world they choose to. How do we get on their radar? And I want you all today to understand, it is because of the strength of the National Women's League, standing behind Dr. Rowley and myself, that you all provided the platform for the leadership to go out there globally and to do what I'm about to tell you. So give yourselves a round of applause, because I thank you. Every time they attacked us, you all came forward and defended us. And let me show you what we were able to do. The chairman globally, the CEO globally of Shell is a guy called Wael Sawan. I have met him several times, including in March of this year. You don't get to meet them people easy. People before were only accustomed meeting who in charge in Trinidad. We now have access to them. And let me tell you what Wael told the world when he spoke to them recently about Shell and how important Trinidad is. This is him reporting to the world from London. Shell said it had strengthened its leadership position in LNG with agreement to acquire Pavilion Energy in Singapore, partner in the ADNOC Ruwais LNG project in Abu Dhabi, and taking final investment decision on the Manatee backfill project in Trinidad and Tobago. Give yourselves Trinidad and Tobago a round of applause. That's Shell talking to the world. He went on to say, on July 9th, Shell said Manatee will competitively grow its integrated gas business by building on development efforts in the East Coast Marine area in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the country's most prolific gas producing areas. ECMA is currently home to Shell's largest gas producing fields in the country, including Dolphin, Starfish, Bounty and Endeavour. And he goes on to talk in glowing terms about Trinidad and Tobago. That is because the leadership of your PNM government went and engaged them, managed to manage the relationship for them to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. Not like Kamala and them that collapsed it in 10 to 15. We turn now to BP. BP's president is a guy called Murray, operating out of London. And this is what he said to their global shareholders on the 30th of July. BP said, in the second quarter, we generated strong operating cash flows, reduced net debt, increased the dividend, and extended our commitment to buybacks. Murray, Chief Executive Officer, and Kate Thompson, the Chief Financial Officer, made second quarter 2024 results in video and hosted a live question and answer session. You all hearing me in the back? With difficulty, right, here we are, back. That's them trying to interfere with the messaging. I wouldn't tell you all what they spoke about and their results, but this is where Murray's surname is actually close. In his video presentation, outlined BP's investments and growth in Trinidad and Tobago. This is BP speaking to the world, and he said, in Trinidad, we have a long history and very strong relationships. We are executing a range of actions to reshape the business for the future. We are accelerating growth enabled by the recent Atlantic LNG restructuring. We are making strong progress at SIP and Mento major projects. Pause. The first thing he is telling the world about the long history and strong relationships, that is a direct reference to their relationships with the Prime Minister and myself, who make it our business to stay engaged. It's not strong relationships with anybody else, and that is PNM leadership. You are seeing the effects of a PNM leadership in securing the future of Trinidad and Tobago. The second point that they keep making recently is they have no oil, gas production taking place. Why don't we do gas production in Trinidad waters and forget about Venezuela? A PNM government will operate like that. We have our hands in every basket, pushing hard in every area to secure the future. And this is what BP says. When he says strong progress at SIP and Mento, those are projects in Trinidad. He goes on to say globally, BP expects to start up these projects in 2025, and he talks about how much it will bring on. And this is the important point. He added, we have taken FID on coconut and doing the FID on ginger, the next investment expected to feed the domestic and LNG market. So we have secured more gas in Trinidad. He goes on to say, and we have secured an exploration and production license for coquina, enabling a material potential development of the Manakin-Coquina cross-border gas resource. Together, this creates a higher value Trinidad gas business with clear line of sight to material high margin growth over the next several years. People have taken the time this afternoon to point those things out to you, because it's important that you know the true facts. These are the heads of BP and Shell globally talking about Trinidad and Tobago. These are real projects. This is gas that is coming. This is gas that is in our waters. We have had successful bid rounds onshore, shallow water. So we are pursuing and securing production in Trinidad and Tobago. So when they talk that rubbish, Women's League, I am asking you all to deal with them and make sure the population knows the truth. That is a PNM government and strong PNM leadership securing that for you. Another one, Woodside out of Australia. The Cabinet could bear me out. Over the last few weeks, I asked Cabinet to approve certain terms that extended the life of Woodside in Trinidad and Tobago. And again, that is a PNM government that would do that. We sat with them, we worked with them for months, and we found ways that they will stay in Trinidad and Tobago for a longer period and get more oil and gas out of the ground. It is you who put a PNM leadership in place to be able to do that. The same thing has happened with some of our other operators. So I want you all to dispel this false narrative that the UNC, up to yesterday, continued to try and portray to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is only because there's a PNM government in place and strong PNM leadership the future of Trinidad and Tobago is secure and in place. But this is what we need to be aware of. The majority of these big projects are only going to come in, the gas from it, from 2027. So we as citizens need to take a decision. Who is going to govern Trinidad and Tobago come the next general election? And that is the most important decision that this country would have made since independence. Because if you put Kamla Prasad Bisesa back there, or any other false pretender, I am guaranteeing you, one, they will not be able to bring in these projects for Trinidad and Tobago. You all remember how every week in Parliament, Kamla and the UNC attacked President Maduro and Vice President Delcy Rodriguez? You all remember that? Do you all remember when the UNC wrote to the Americans saying, put sanctions on Rowley and Young? You remember when we allowed Vice President Rodriguez to come across on a plane during COVID, how they wanted me thrown out. Young must go, and they wanted Dr. Rowley and myself sanctioned. Every week they attack Dragon. Every week they attack President Maduro. Every week they used to talk about President Guaido. You remember that? Well, I want to ask you all this question. God forbid the Women's League don't mobilize. God forbid that the PNM don't mobilize. God forbid the population make a mistake they made in 2010 and put the UNC in place. You think they could secure anything in Venezuela? You know what will happen to us here in Trinidad? You think that them or Kevin Ramnarine or David Lee could walk into BP in London or Shell in London and The Hague and do what Dr. Rowley and I did? The answer is no. The answer is no. They may not even take their call, or they'll take it out of courtesy. We sat down and negotiated gas contracts. The last article I want to refer you all to came out this week, and is an important one because this does two things. It shows you how sometimes the media try to paint a different narrative. This was on Thursday in the Guardian, and the headline is June energy revenue down 51% for 2024. So in other words, hell in a handbasket for 2024, which of course is not true. But when you read what this Dr. Valmiki Arjun said, it is important because he explained here what we have been saying. He said what is noteworthy is the energy revenues for the first 3 quarters of this fiscal are in fact higher than the energy revenues from the immediate pre-pandemic era. So here you have a professor acknowledging that the money we now get for oil and our gas is higher than we used to get before COVID, even though production over COVID was higher. You know why that is? Because your PNM government negotiated better prices for your gas, and that is something only PNM could do. So Women's League, the responsibility is yours. The responsibility is yours as the leaders of this party, and the leaders in your community, and the leaders of your household. Because every PNM MP knows that when a PNM mother or grandmother wakes up, come election morning, they have one message to everybody in the household. What's that message? Take your backside out and go and vote the PNM, correct? Every time you walk in the constituency, the grandmothers and the mothers tell you, Mr. Young, no worry, you know, I have 13 votes inside, and let them go vote for the PNM. They can't come home this afternoon. They can't come home this evening. Mr. Young, you don't worry, you know, because all them young boys there, we go send them down to vote. But that only happens when the Women's League mobilizes. So the responsibility starts with you. And that is the ask, one of the asks of you all here this afternoon. We've done some of the hard work, but now the decision-making time is coming. Now the country must choose. Who knows when the election will call? It has to call in the next year. And it is incumbent upon you all, it's your responsibility, each and every one of you all, wherever you are, to start mobilizing. Start walking, start canvassing, start telling the children, the grandchildren, the nieces, the nephews, the children in the neighborhood, the adult men, The time is coming, and the time is coming to vote for the PNM again. I wouldn't tell you all today about what we did with USA and Venezuela, with OFAC and Dragon and Coquina. You know about that already. But I am telling you, only a PNM government could have done that. It is only because you gave me the opportunity. I could have gone to the White House and spoken to the American leadership. And Dr. Rowley could have gone to the White House and the Congress and for us to have spoken to them. I have made over 20 trips to Venezuela in the most difficult of times to secure a 30-year license for Dragon and a 20-year license for Coquina. It's only a PNM government could do that. And as for you, and as for our children, nobody else could have done that. And I am proud that you gave me that responsibility and that privilege to be able to deliver that. So some of us have done our job and delivered that to you. Let me tell you what we intend to do with some of this money in 2027, because we understand how difficult it is for all of you women. We're going to put more money in youth development and national service. We're going to build on the programs there, CCC, MyLat. We are also going to be looking at, in our communities, daycare centers for our young mothers to go and work whilst their children are being securely looked after. We're going to seek to have more counseling available for our young women in the society and in the communities, that they could discuss some of the problems they have. We're going to have more support systems. We're going to have more programs that are going to be centric and focused on the women, because we recognize as a PNM government the importance of the women in our society. It's going to happen in education. It's going to happen in healthcare. The same way we took the little money we had, spread it more into GATE and for bursaries as opposed into scholarships. Those are the type of things. The book grant system. These are the things, because we know how difficult it is. And this PNM government is going to focus on it. But we can only do so with your help. We can only do so if you return us to where we need to be, which is running Trinidad and Tobago. I want to remind you all, in that 10 to 15 period, what happened when Trinidad and Tobago took God out of their thoughts and put the UNC in power. The first thing they come in and do is seek every one of us. They will find us in CPEP, they will find us in URP, they will find us on state boards, they will find us in state enterprises, they will find you in ministries, they will find you anywhere you are, because that is the UNC way, and they will get rid of you. You all remember that period? You all remember when PNM membership, us, some of us, not all of us, took that decision. Well, I ain't voting the PNM in 2010. I go teach them a lesson. You all remember that? We can't make that mistake again. So National Women's League, you are the pillar of strength in the PNM. You have leaders all here in front of you, under your lady vice chair. You're all leaders in your own right. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and I look forward to coming in all 41 constituencies as the chairman of the People's National Movement, and to be on the ground with you all as you all go forward and preach the principles of the PNM, and you go out there and you pull the people out to vote for the People's National Movement again. Because once the Women's League is mobilized, once you're on a roll, you are unstoppable. So women, it's all about you. And we have come here to thank you for all that you've done for the last 6+ decades. But to ask you once again, prepare yourselves, because we've done the work in energy, and it would be a damn shame all of that hard work, blood, sweat and tears of our PNM leadership and government ends up in the wrong hands, because we will never recover. They showed us in 2010 to 15, they do not know how to manage Trinidad and Tobago. They think they could buy everybody by sprinkling corn. We have to reject that. So ladies, are you all ready? Are you ready to return to the battlefields? Are you ready to take up the mantle of leadership that you have always done? Are you going to provide the strength for 41 candidates as we walk across Trinidad and Tobago? Are the ladies of the People's National Movement and the National Women's League ready to take us into battle? Because we are ready for you to take us into battle. We are ready for your leadership, your energy, your intelligence, your strength, your power, and your nurturing to lead us back into battle, because the battle is coming, and we will join them in 41 constituencies with the National Women's League and every female member leading every male member of the People's National Movement under the astute leadership of Dr. Keith Rowley and your leadership that you've elected as we march again into victory. And I look forward on that night of the general election to welcome you to Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, to welcome you to Balize House, to join with the women of the National Women's League, as once again you would have shown your power and your strength and leadership, as we will say together, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail. Thank you.